Napoleon once said, "Imagination rules the world." Fitting words for a poet with an enormous ego, one who took them a little too seriously and actually became a dictator, if only for a year. It's the year of 1919. World War I has just ended and Europe looks like a giant mess. Old empires like Austria-Hungary and the Ottomans have collapsed. New countries are being stitched together out of scraps. The Paris Peace Conference is trying to draw borders, but everyone's arguing. Italy is especially cranky. They'd fought on the winning side, but didn't get all the land they were promised. Amid this chaos emerged one of the strangest figures of the era, Gabriele D'Annunzio. He wasn't your typical general. He was a poet, novelist, womanizer, celebrity, war hero, and a man obsessed with theatrical gestures. Think Oscar Wilde mixed with a rock star, then handed a rifle and far too much political influence. The epicenter of all of this was the city of Fiume, modern-day's Rijeka in Croatia. It was a strategic port, with a mixed population of Italians, Croats, Serbs, Hungarians. Italy wanted it badly, calling it unredeemed Italy. The newly formed kingdom of Serbs, Croats, and Slovens wanted it too. The allies at the peace conference were still deciding what to do with it. D'Annunzio was furious that the Italian government wasn't simply grabbing the city. For him, it was personal. Fiume was Italian in his eyes, and by not annexing it, Italy was betraying its national destiny. So he decided, basically, if the government won't do it, I'll do it myself. In September 1919, he gathered about 2,600 men. Soldiers, veterans, nationalists, and assorted thrill-seekers set off from Regency, Italy. This little army became known as the Legionaries. This wasn't exactly a military invasion. It was more like a flamboyant road trip with guns. D'Annunzio led from the front in his officer's uniform, reciting poetry, giving speeches, and posing dramatically at every stop. When they arrived in Fiume, the Italian garrison stationed there was supposed to resist. Instead, many of them joined him. And just like that, the poet walked into a disputed city and became its ruler. He called the adventure La Marcia su Fiume, the March on Fiume. Spoiler, Mussolini will later copy this idea with his March on Rome. When D'Annunzio and his legionaries occupied the city, he set up his base in the governor's palace. But true to his flair for theatrics, he couldn't just call it headquarters. Instead, he christened it the House of the Platypus, after his men allegedly stole a stuffed platypus from the city's Natural History Museum. The bizarre creature amused him so much that it became the unlikely mascot of his regime, a fitting symbol for an experiment that was itself a strange hybrid of carnival, commune, and dictatorship. For the next 16 months, D'Annunzio and his followers ran Fiume. What did daily life look like? Well, every day there were parades, speeches, concerts, and ceremonies. He invented new flags, slogans, and greetings. Yes, some of these would later inspire fascist rituals. There was an official music section, because D'Annunzio declared music a basic human right. The city was full of legionaries marching around, singing, and posing for propaganda photos. He had a whole photography department cranking out thousands of staged shots. But underneath all the pageantry, problems piled up fast. Supplies ran out, hunger set in, soldiers became restless, and discipline broke down. The local population wasn't thrilled. Meanwhile, the Italian government in Rome was deeply embarrassed. They hadn't authorized this occupation, but kicking out a national hero was politically risky. D'Annunzio basically held the government hostage with his popularity. Things got weirder. D'Annunzio started rejecting compromise. When the Allies suggested peaceful solutions, he mocked them. When Italy offered to negotiate, he refused. For him, The whole thing was a grand stage, and compromise didn't fit the script. Eventually, Rome lost patience. By late 1920, Italy decided to send troops and the navy to shut this circus down. And here comes the most ridiculous part. Instead of backing down, D'Annunzio declared war on his own country. This led to what's called the Christmas of Blood in December 1920. Italian warships shelled his headquarters. D'Annunzio himself was wounded, reportedly by glass when a shell hit near him. Within days, his whole experiment collapsed. On Christmas Eve, he finally gave up, slipped out of Fiume, and retired, still convinced of his own genius. The city returned to more ordinary governance, and the fever dream was over. Instead of facing trial for basically declaring war on Italy, he was treated carefully. Why? Because he was still a national celebrity. The government didn't want to make him a martyr. He retreated into semi-exile at his villa on Lake Garda. There, he surrounded himself with trophies, memorabilia, and statues. In 1924, King Victor Emmanuel III made D'Annunzio a Prince of Montenevoso. He spent the rest of his life as a kind of eccentric living monument. He continued writing, receiving visitors, and turning his villa into a surreal labyrinth of art, relics, and symbols. His home eventually became a museum after his death in 1938. So in the end, D'Annunzio's occupation of Fiume is one of history's strangest episodes. Part comedy, a poet throwing parades while the city starved. Part tragedy, because his ideas about spectacle and nationalism would echo in much darker times. It's the story of a man who thought politics should be a live-action art project. And for 16 chaotic months, an entire city became his stage. So next time someone tells you poetry has no practical use, remind them that once a poet actually conquered a city.